Hey guys, I just wanted to apologize for the length of this video. I really did try to make it shorter, but I wanted to include a bunch of clips from Raleigh's video so that we could get an honest perspective of both sides, and so I could break down each of her individual arguments and include some of the things that I have that completely contradict with claims that she's making about me. Because I have some screenshots and emails and whatnot. So apologies for the length. I hope people will listen to it with an open mind and consider both perspectives, because I'm genuinely not trying to have a character assassination for her. I just don't agree with how she's been using her platform to platform someone like Charlie Kirk without the full nuance of the discussion. And I think that it poses a threat to a lot of marginalized groups of people. And that's really my main concern. It's not anything to do with her personally. It's taking issues with her actions, and I want to make that very clear. So Raleigh responded to my video, and oh boy, is it a doozy. I have a bunch of problems with things that she said. I think a lot of it is deliberately dishonest, which is very ironic because she's trying to call me a grifter right there in the title. So I'm going to break down the video step by step, and I'm going to leave all of the things that I have that contradict what she's saying happened between us and what she's saying about me. I have things like an entire email thread between us from 2020. I have some screenshots from her community page where she referred to me as her friend and a good horse trainer. And then I also have some other clips from videos where she references me in ways in the last couple of years or the last year where she does not hold the opinions of me that she is saying in this video. First, we have Shelby is a bad person in block letters on the thumbnail. And then the title is Shelby Grifter Dennis is a fake activist. So what is a grifter? A grifter is someone who gets money dishonestly by tricking people. So despite her making the claim that I'm grifting people for money, there's nothing to actually support that in the video. The only thing that I can think of that she was trying to support this claim with was the fact that I made a GoFundMe for my mom's horse who had a ruptured hematoma in his rectum and a $12,000 vet bill. My mom's insurance slashed her insurance in half without notifying her, so she had a lot less coverage than she thought. And she's been having a lot of financial hardships and issues, and I love my mom, and I see how stressed she is all the time, and Pogo is the love of her life. So I wrote exactly what happened to him, detailed all of the medical experiences, the bills, and I set the GoFundMe to less than half of what his total bill was. And it was honest. She doesn't have to agree with the GoFundMe. I'm not going to say that she has to. She can totally disagree and think that it's in poor taste. She's entitled to that. But to try to claim that it's grifting is not true because it's not lying. There's no tricking people. They're being given information and then they get to make the choice as to whether or not they want to participate in mutual aid. And then the other thing she brought up with that was George's GoFundMe from back in 2018 when he had 2 bone chips. I got that horse from the racetrack. I was given incorrect information about the x-rays that he had on file, and the track vet misdiagnosed him. He ended up having 2 hind slab fractures and a chip in his ankle, and I didn't want to send him back to potentially go back and race or just be in a situation where he would be hard to place. So yes, I did do a GoFundMe for that because I wanted to help save him. And again, don't have to agree with that, but it's heavily ironic for someone who then later in the video tries to use the fact that I participated in the racing industry to claim that it's disingenuous for me to have the belief systems that I do now, to basically try to slam my character for trying to give a horse a soft place to land. Grifting applies to situations where you're deliberately misleading people to take their money. I have never done that. Even in that video where she makes that claim, she has absolutely nothing to back that claim. So it's a false claim. Now let's jump into the other things because I think they're objectively worse. And there's some outright blatant lies that she's made that I have a huge problem with because she's essentially trying to rewrite history.
She only talks about things that she thinks will benefit her because she's a virtue signaler.
So this I found really interesting because I think anyone who has actually used their platform to speak out on issues like what's going on in Palestine can speak for the fact that you get shadow banned pretty quickly and it tanks your views and it impacts your income if you rely on social media for any type of income. Additionally, with my horse training stuff, I've actually taken a cut from what I would have previously made from training as soon as I started focusing on behavior because it's not as lucrative to give people these long-term plans on how to adjust their horse's behavior and not promise quick fixes. It's a lot more lucrative to be buying and selling project horses or helping clients sell horses quickly and overlooking any types of behavioral problems that you see or writing them off to just be a training issue and riding through it. And I was profiting more off of my training when I did that. It has put me in a little bit of a box by advocating for horse welfare and the human rights issues that I do, where there's a lot of people who don't like my stuff. it has lost me business because of that, but I don't do it for any personal benefit. There are a lot of ways that you can bring more traffic into your content and get more attention, and they're not about speaking about Palestine or a lot of the issues that I touch on. And I think it speaks for the fact that like there's a reason why a lot of these big creators don't want to cover these topics, and it's because it does not serve them. It does not bring them any type of personal benefit. It actually requires them to take a personal loss in a lot of cases for the greater benefit of other people who are more in need. But she probably wouldn't know that because she's never had to look at the analytics of how much discussing those controversial topics actually would cause your content to take a hit.
Shelby, you know, I always knew that the day would come when I would finally get to expose you for the grifter that you are.
If you always felt this way, why on your own content were you talking about me in a favorable manner? If you truly believed that I was a grifter and that I was taking advantage of people for money, why would you endorse me in any way? And you're saying you always thought that. But then you're telling people that I'm your friend, that you consider me a friend on your community page. That's building trust with your audience. If you think I'm a dangerous person that is grifting people, why are you telling your audience that I'm your friend? Like genuinely, if you truly believe these things, why would you mislead your audience to go get taken advantage of someone if that's what you believe? Like the contradiction here is just so crazy to me because you're just completely rewriting the narrative as soon as I say something that you don't like.
I used to think that I would feel joy or even excitement in finally being able to make this video about you. But the truth is, I honestly just feel sad. For a long time, I genuinely wanted to believe that you had changed and that you had become a good person, a complete 180 from who you used to be.
So we're only like 3 minutes into Raleigh's video and she's already contradicted herself majorly just in the first couple of sentences. Reminder of what she said just before the clip I just showed you.
You know, I always knew that the day would come when I would finally get to expose you for the grifter that you are.
You can't have always thought that she was going to be able to expose me in this way while still hoping that I'm going to do a 180 and become a better person. Admitting that you thought you'd feel joy and excitement about this is one, admitting that you thought about this quite a lot, and two, admitting that your character is such that you may get joy and excitement from the possibility of trying to ruin someone you don't like. But if you were truly always feeling those things, then how were you ever actually hoping that I had become a better person? And why, again, were you referring to me as a friend on your community page? Which, by the way, I wouldn't consider Raleigh a friend. I would say at best we're acquaintances that worked in a similar field for horse welfare. I had respect for some of the topics that she covered. She was a trailblazer for a lot of horse welfare discussion on YouTube. Even if I didn't always agree with her, she at least opened important conversations. But a friend is someone that I contact on a regular basis and that actually knows stuff about me as a person and that I am on friendly terms with. At most, I would say our interactions were like business related. So for her to call me a friend on her community tab was shocking to me. I actually only found out about that because multiple people messaged me to tell me that, and I was baffled by it because I would never have considered us friends, but she said that herself, and then now look at the video that she's made.
You literally exposed yourself. You're not here for the animals. You're a fake virtue signaling activist. You're a grifter hoping to capitalize on the few thousand subscribers that I lost for standing up for Charlie Kirk's senseless murder.
Well, that's a whole lot of words and a whole lot of lack of substance to actually substantiate why you feel that way. I am not trying to capitalize off of your followers because, as I've stated prior, I've been speaking out on Palestine for almost 2 years now when I learned about it. And I'll admit I was ignorant about these issues before. And I learned, and then I've been using my platform for that. So I've become very accustomed to the fact that when I do a charged post about issues impacting marginalized people, or when I call out any right-wing celebrity type, that I lose followers. So for you to be so self-obsessed and narcissistic that you think that my only motivation for speaking out against a guy that promoted hate speech is to try to capitalize off of your followers, take a seat, Raleigh. Like, calm down. The world does not revolve around you. Not everyone is that motivated by followers.
I love how performative you are right here. Never did I ever say that people were crazy for not liking him. It's actually funny that you would say that, because it points out how stupid you are when you sit there and ramble behind your camera.
Have you considered the fact that someone who incited violence on other people and mocked the death of other people and normalized that being a thing might get retaliation in a similar way because of the fact that he did that? And that doesn't mean that people doing that is okay. It's in poor taste. The overwhelming majority of people that I see that are not mourning Charlie Kirk also aren't celebrating his death, because gun violence is gun violence. This sets a bad precedent that endangers everyone. It's not just about him. But the fact that you're omitting the important parts of the discussion of the type of person he was, how he's being martyred now, and how his death is being used to continue perpetuating harmful rhetorics is the problem. So it's not just what you've said, it's also what you haven't said and what you've missed out on, and what your inaction in so many other circumstances says about you. And I said that pretty clearly in my video, so I'm wondering, did you watch the whole thing? If what you're getting out of this is that my only problem is the fact that you said that people shouldn't mock his murder. Because in that video, I also said that we shouldn't be gloating about violence occurring to anyone. But Charlie Kirk himself advocated for violence happening to people depending on who it was. He said horrible things about George Floyd that George Floyd's family had to see. I know that, and I saw it happen in real time because I was involved in the Black Lives Matter protest. And I saw how horrendous and horrific the things that he was saying were. And that's in a case where someone was murdered by a police officer on camera in front of a crowd. So if the issue is that violence should not be celebrated, how come you're making an entire video dedicated to empathizing with Charlie Kirk that leaves out instances and important nuance where he has done the very thing that you're trying to protect him from to other people in a horribly public and awful way for an extended period of time?
What I said was the people who were saying that it was okay for this man to be murdered, they're crazy. They are insane for condoning violence.
Okay, so what I'm hearing you say here is that your main issue was that people were celebrating the violence and celebrating his death, and that you think that's crazy and insane and terrible and disgusting, right? So if that's the case, why does that mindset not apply to everyone? Why are you willing to overlook the instances where Charlie Kirk did that just because he's dead? And I'm going to take you at your own words and remind you of something you said just a few months ago, because you're doing it right now.
There seems to be a group of people that are defending Dr. Sean Frainer simply because he's dead now. I want to address a common phenomenon known as the purification of the dead, which we're seeing in this guy's video. This is not an attack on him or anyone who has a similar opinion to what he just said, rather a critical look at this troubling pattern. Despite this, some individuals, such as this guy and a few others, are attempting to completely absolve him of blame simply because he is deceased.
Does that not sound exactly like what you're doing here now with Charlie Kirk? Like, girl.
Even though they're saying there's not an excuse for his actions, they're excusing his action. But we must remember that recognizing wrongdoing, even after someone has passed away, is not an attack. It's a commitment to truth, integrity, and the welfare of animals that we need to protect.
I don't think I could have said it better than the woman herself. She's literally doing exactly what she said there, and that last passage especially is heavily ironic.
Back in the late 2010s, used to make videos about me nearly every single time I posted a video to the internet. Started speaking out about equine welfare. Shelby was one of my biggest critics. Anytime I mentioned why I don't ride in bits, Shelby was right there to say that I was an idiot, there was nothing wrong with bits. Shelby Grifter Dennis, who was a racing jockey for a very long time, made so many videos about me defending the racing industry. Loved the racing industry so much that she even said that she would race horses for free. But as a horse trainer, I do have work all year round riding all sorts of different horses. So right now my paycheck is not from the racing world, and I make enough money as is to not even have to go back to galloping. But I do it because I have a ton of respect for my boss and I love the horses. And it's a good job to have. Every time I would post videos or photos on Instagram, Shelby was right there to leave a nasty comment, to make fun of me, to make fun of my riding.
That's a lot of stuff that you're claiming right there, and it's pretty convenient because you've deleted the Instagram page that you're claiming I made these comments on, so you know that there's no receipts to prove whether I did or did not say this, but I'm going to use your own behavior to kind of plead my case. If you actually felt that way and that I said all these horrible things, that I was such a horrible, terrible bully to you, why in recent years have you been advocating for my training, calling me a great trainer, saying that I'm your friend, and responding and collaborating with me in different instances. I'm going to include an email thread here from 2020 between me and Raleigh when we collaborated to do a live video where we discussed horse racing, I believe it was. So that's really ironic because you're also bringing up my support of horse racing when we actually did a live video that was an entire discussion about how my perspectives shift. So if you hadn't been watching my videos, which you don't have to, I wouldn't assume that you had, you still knew because we had a whole discussion about it on live in 2020 and we arranged it through email, and I'll scroll through the whole email thread. You guys can pause to read it if you want, or if anyone wants me to forward them the entire thread, I will, because I have nothing to hide. But for her to bring up stuff from over a decade ago when I was 18 years old or 19 years old, and to try to frame it as if I'm still that same person now and that she still has all of these same issues, when to me, she's been singing a completely different tune, and even to her own followers and community, she has too. It is just so incredibly deceptive and dishonest. And to have that in the same breath as someone who's calling me a grifter, it's like, girl, the call is coming from inside the house. Every accusation you're making here seems like it's a confession. Let's jump into her attempts to discredit me based off of my work in the racing industry. I have never hidden my past. I've been abundantly honest about how I used to train horses, who I used to work with, what I used to do, what I used to believe in. I absolutely did argue with her about bits, which she, by the way, claims I deleted all the videos. That bit video is still up. Every video I've ever made about her is still up. You can go look on my channel. But I did do that. I was very defensive and I didn't want to change, and I was in denial about a lot of the things that I now see as welfare issues. But that is the nature of learning. So my question to someone like Raleigh is, what is the purpose in your activism if you cannot fathom people changing what they do, becoming a different person, and having that be an authentic change of their character, and to walk the walk, and to do things differently, and to change their opinions when they learn new things and do better as they know better? What is the point of your activism? Because you're blaming me and saying that I'm just doing this for virtue signaling and for my own benefit. But what's the purpose of you doing these things if you don't even believe that people can make changes genuinely and have new belief systems? The fact that I supported racing to the extent that I used to and argued with you about it does not mean that that perspective can't shift and evolve as I get older, especially when we're referencing stuff from, as you stated, the late 2010s when I would have been a teenager or fresh out of high school. I've learned a lot of stuff since then, and I hope you have too. But what's the point of this advocacy that you're doing if you're going to basically hold people to the standard of being like, you said this a decade ago, so you must still believe this? Like, where's the logic there? I don't understand why you post activist videos if you don't have the belief system that people can change as they learn and do better, because I certainly do. I don't believe all the things that I said about the racing industry. I haven't ridden racehorses in 5 years now. And my perspectives have shifted a lot within the last 2-3 years, much less the last decade. So I just don't really understand that.
So I just wanted to give a major shout out to Raleigh for being so passive aggressive in her recent video and giving me something to respond to. You truly make it so easy. So thank you again for the shout out. Next time it would be nice though if you could name me, because if you're going to blatantly call someone out so obviously to the point where numerous people send me that video and take clips of it so I don't even have to watch it to give you any ounce of money from watching your monetized video.
Okay, that video she took of me is so old that I've moved 3 times since then. I think I was 18 or 19 in that video. I said a lot of dumb shit when I was 18, 19, early 20s, and I've changed a lot of it as a person since then. I'm not the same person. So I don't deny the fact that there was situations that I argued with her in where I wasn't my best self. And I would also say that I have had situations with Raleigh where she has sent her fan base after me and I've been targeted and attacked, which is why in that video I'm referencing her being passive aggressive and making a video about me and people sending it to me, because this thing that she's referencing was a back and forth thing between both of us. It was not one-sided. Her trying to frame it as just being one-sided where I was harassing her and coming after her, absolutely insane. And also, again, I will repeat, if that was her interpretation of what happened, why was she okay with continuing any type of relationship or contact with me following that? Why were we having civil discussions and just normal coexistence and even agreeing with and supporting each other in certain cases for the last several years? It has been like that where we've been on good terms for 5 years. So why the sudden shift? Why are you dragging up and rehashing stuff from a decade ago? It doesn't really make sense. If you've always felt this way, this is something that we should have addressed way long ago instead of you not mentioning this to be a problem and even like talking me up on your platform.
Shelby, you relentlessly mocked me. You tore me down on a regular basis. You tried to provoke me so many times, and I always just ignored you. The most hilarious thing about you reacting to my last video was that a large part of why I stood up for the people making fun of this guy's murder is because of all the people like you.
I need you to go back, read your thumbnail, read the title of this video, go look at the fact that you called me stupid, go look at all of the things that you've said about my character and the personal attacks that you have put into this video, and then go back and watch mine and go see if I name called you. Go see if I do anything other than take issue with your actions and what you're defending about Charlie Kirk in that video. You are going on a character assassination in this video and you're trying to completely lambaste me. Trying to then say that I am someone who does that when your behavior in this video is doing exactly what you're accusing me of is just ridiculous. And also, if the reason why you stood up for Charlie Kirk is because of people like me, again, that begs the question, why are you okay with the stuff that he says? Why aren't you giving full context for some of the horrible things that he said? I have never advocated for the death of anyone. I have never said anything horrible about someone who died like he did about George Floyd. So if you're actually trying to protect people from bullies, why are you using your platform to advocate for a bully without advocating for all of the other people that his platform harmed, or all of the other people in other situations who are being bullied for being who they are? You're trying to frame this as you being the bigger person and trying to advocate for people who are being victims of bullying or being mistreated, but you are doing so by defending a bully, someone who has oppressed and mistreated many people in a way that is way worse than what you're even accusing me of here.
Who condones the lady who was stalking and doxing me and harassing me and sharing my address and my phone number on the internet. You, and I remember seeing you in her comments, even though I know you're going to say you never did.
Since you're rehashing stuff from a decade ago, I'm going to be honest and I genuinely do not know who you're talking about and who doxed you or what happened. So if you saw me in the comment section, please give me more context because I don't condone doxing. I have never advocated for people sharing the personal information of others, and I don't recall this situation, but you are bringing up stuff from such a long time ago that maybe I missed something. If that happened, Raleigh, I'm truly sorry. I'm truly sorry if that happened. I don't remember it, and based off of how much other stuff you're lying about or intentionally misrepresenting in this video, I am honestly a little skeptical about how true what you're saying is. But if that happened, I am sorry. No one should have done that to you. Whatever that woman did should not have happened. That is horrible. I will also admit readily that how young you were online when you started out and how people treated you was horrible. You have put up with a lot of shit online, and a lot of the ways that people have treated you were unfair too. But the way Charlie Kirk used his platform was also a problem, and he wasn't a good person, and we cannot talk about him and the response to his death without looking at the full nuance of the whole situation and why there is so much controversy and why people are so mad at him. And that is the only point I've been trying to make, is that we need all the context. Otherwise, it seems like you're martyring an objectively bad person, and it's just throwing fuel on the fire of people who are looking for any excuse to hate on marginalized people.
I remember seeing your fans sharing her posts, doxing me.
And it's so funny that you would make a video trying to virtue signal about how you're some great person. That's pretty hilarious.
Question, where in that video did I talk about how great of a person I am or make it about me? Because in this video of yours that I watched, there's a lot of stuff centering yourself and creating this alleged feud that we've apparently been having forever and still ongoing, despite the examples that that's not the case on your end. But where in that video was I centering myself and trying to elevate myself to being a good person? I was simply taking issue with patterns of behavior that I've seen in the community. And you know what? You didn't have to commit to that pattern of behavior. You could have listened to what happened and gone and looked at some of the stuff that Charlie Kirk said and looked a little further past the information that you might have been seeing and started to understand why marginalized people are seeing such an issue with his behavior. And you could have still held the perspective that he shouldn't have been shot for his opinions, which again, I don't agree with violence either. I haven't said that that's okay. But you could have just reflected and actually considered the full nuance of the situation. But instead, you made a response video that the entire purpose of it is trying to degrade me as a human being and manufacture this feud that we've apparently been having, despite the fact that we both know that's not freaking true. And you've publicly contradicted yourself. Like, I truly don't understand what the motivation of this is when there's so much evidence to the contrary of these things that you're saying.
And here is a black gay man addressing how you are taking his own words about gun violence out of context.
You will never live in a society when you have an armed citizenry and you won't have a single gun death. That is nonsense. It's drivel. But I think it's worth it. I think it's worth to have a cost of, unfortunately, some gun deaths every single year.
So I just want to point out that a very common tactic used by right-wing people who are trying to justify the idea that these people they're supporting that incite hatred on marginalized groups aren't actually doing that. They'll bring up they have a black friend, or they'll find a video like what Raleigh did here. This is a gay black man. See, he's in 2 marginalized groups, guys, so that makes his opinion twice as important and twice as accurate. He speaks for all black people and all gay people. Here's the one guy I could find that agrees with me. And then they run with it to try to justify everything that someone did. So the full clip of Charlie Kirk, yes, in a world where there's guns, you're not going to have 0 gun deaths. That's true. That's not really taking his clip out of context, though, because he did say that mass shootings are just a price that has to be paid for the Second Amendment, right? And yes, there's still going to be shooting deaths if there's guns, but the rate at which they are happening is the issue. Also, I'm going to list a bunch of black creators that are well educated on these types of topics and talk about systemic racism and how people such as Charlie Kirk leverage that in their audiences. And I'm going to give different context. I'll link them all down below in the description of this, because you're always going to find someone who fits into a minority group that will justify their oppression. That's why Charlie Kirk was able to be friends with someone like Candace Owens. That's why there's people like Kanye West, who is black, but openly says that he's a Nazi. Someone being black or in a minority group does not cancel out the fact that they can still hate on their own group of people or advocate for harm towards those people or support people who advocate for said harm. So the fact that you've gone out of your way to try to pick one black creator that supports the mindset you want to perpetuate instead of listening to the many, many, many people who are discussing at length the nuances of racism, talking about what microaggressions are, and talking about the language that Charlie Kirk uses and how it's racist towards black people in specific. The fact that you went out of your way to find a minority that perpetuates the opinion you want to push forward says everything.
I remember that you bullied me so bad that in 2018, I broke down on YouTube. And I cried on camera about I didn't understand why everybody hated me so much for speaking up for horses. I know you remember that. Yeah, I bet you were probably sitting there smiling and laughing.
So first of all, I just want to remind you at the beginning of this video, you said that you thought you'd feel joy and happiness when you got to finally drag me and throw me under the bus and expose me. So I think that you trying to claim that I knew what was happening to you and that I was laughing and gloating about your pain, I think that's a projection of your own feelings. Because I wasn't doing that. You want to know what I was doing in 2018, Raleigh? I was watching someone I loved very much be in active opiate addiction and overdose and wondering if they were going to get sober and worrying every day that I would wake up to find them not around anymore. I had my own trauma that I was going through. And honestly, that's probably part of the reason why we had so much back and forth and disagreements, because I was going through a shitty time in my life and I was more bothered by things and I wasn't ready to shift a lot of my horsemanship perspectives, because changing that worldview when I had so much else going on in my life would have been really hard and I wasn't ready to shift. So I resisted. I pushed back against the stuff that you said about traditional horsemanship and bits and horse racing, because accepting that some of that stuff was true meant having the world that I built about horses as I knew it completely crumble. And that was the one shred of something that was keeping me sane and keeping me from completely spiraling and wanting to no longer be on this planet. So that's what I was doing during 2018. I wasn't sitting behind my computer waiting for bad things to happen to you or wishing ill on you. Disagreeing with you does not mean I wish harm on you. Even in this case, I think you're using your platform irresponsibly. I think you're perpetuating harmful rhetoric, and I think you're bullying me in this fucking response video, but that doesn't mean I wish harm on you. That doesn't mean that I want people to hurt you or dox you or that I'm glad that you're sad or upset. I hope you're fucking thriving. I saw that you just had a baby. Congratulations. I hope that you're really enjoying motherhood. I hope that you're not having a bad time. So do not put words in my mouth and make claims about how I felt about things, especially when we had moved on and had been on good terms. You're rehashing old shit and trying to paint me as a villain when you yourself did not think that until I disagreed with you in my last video.
But yet you're on the internet talking about how you're the true activist.
I have literally never said online that I'm the true activist or tried to center myself in activism like that. I have just encouraged people to speak out and call out people who I don't think are using their platforms responsibly. But if anyone can find a clip where I've said that to support Raleigh's claim, I'll send you a gift card to a coffee shop because I didn't say that and she's lying.
How you're the person who really cares about others. Yeah.
I didn't say that and you know it. I just said that I have been using my platform to the best of my ability to advocate for marginalized people and to use it to advocate for controversial issues that are primarily impacting marginalized people. And I've done so for years, which is just an objectively true statement.
Shelby's literally sitting here defending people who are celebrating a man's murder.
Again, it's really disappointing to watch you take clips and then make claims to things that I've said and they're not true, especially as someone who is trying to say that I was taking Charlie Kirk's statements out of context. I never defended people that were saying that he should have died. I never defended people advocating for or celebrating his violence. I simply said that people don't have to mourn him. And I simply said that there's a lot more nuance to the topic and there's a reason why people are so angry and why he was such a divisive person, and that you were missing out on very important parts of the context to see why marginalized people felt so impacted by his content and why people viewed him as such a hateful person towards marginalized people. I never once condoned or defended the violence perpetrated on him or said that it was fine for people to be celebrating his death. I said that they just don't have to mourn him and that not mourning him is not celebrating. If you have to completely rewrite my argument to find a point to attack, this isn't a real discussion. It isn't a real debate. It's your attempt to just completely deflect away from what I actually said and attack me as a person. And I thought we were beyond that. I genuinely did. And this is such a disappointing response because you just get more mean throughout this video and it's all personal attacks and you saying things that just aren't true.
So if this doesn't tell you the type of virtue signaling grifter that Shelby is, I don't know what does.
And I don't know if it's just me, but I'm noticing a lot of parallels between the language that Raleigh's using in this video, how she's trying to attack me, her examples of why I'm a bad person, and just the general tone. I'm noticing a lot of parallels between that and how really divisive right-wing advocates speak, like Donald Trump, Charlie Kirk, Nick Fuentes, all of these people that are part of the whole squad of guys that are perpetuating harm on marginalized people. A lot of them talk in a similar way where they say really inflammatory things. They do character attacks, they exaggerate things, or they outright lie, and they use that to try to convince their audience to follow them and just like follow their authority. It's not about critical thinking. It's not about truth seeking. It's not about actually having a debate or accurately representing the argument. It's about trying to conquer people that you view as a threat or an enemy. And this whole video feels the exact same as when I watch those people's videos. And that's really concerning because I do think that probably speaks for what type of content she's consuming if this is how she's speaking. And there's a reason why those parallels exist. And there's also a reason why she was able to empathize so heavily with someone like Charlie Kirk.
It became unpopular for you to speak out against me. Your videos started getting more and more dislikes and criticisms on them because slowly over time, I was proven right for the things that I was saying about the horse industry being terrible, about the racing industry being terrible.
Raleigh, I gotta be honest here, that just isn't true because you're still a very divisive figure in the horse community, and I still have gotten a lot of people over the years encouraging me to respond to your content and taking issue with some of the things you've said. I just haven't viewed it as a priority to talk about because I think at its core, when you're talking about a lot of these horse welfare issues, that your heart is in the right place. And even if some of it's exaggerated, in my opinion, or if some things are misrepresented, I think the core of what you're saying has been true. But the reason why I stopped speaking out about the content that you're making is not because it became unpopular to do so. My viewpoints shifted and they became more in alignment with yours, even though they were not completely in alignment with them. And there was just no point in having these back and forths because I started focusing on bigger issues. Like, I don't know if you know this, but I helped co-found a welfare organization that's currently lobbying the FEI and other horse sport organizations for better welfare protocols. So that is a much more important thing to focus on than what you're doing when I didn't see your content being problematic or harmful and I didn't feel triggered by it because I wasn't as aligned with the people that you were advocating against. So yeah, that's the shift. It's not because it became unpopular, it's because I changed as a human being. I developed new priorities and interests and belief systems as I moved through my 20s into my late 20s, and my perspectives shifted as a result. Trying to frame it as solely just being about what is and isn't popular, once again, you're centering yourself in this whole discussion. You're assuming that all of my decisions surround you and you influencing my account, my channel, my followers, my likes, and that my decision making is centered around that, which just isn't true. I don't plan my content based off of how people feel about you. I post what feels right to me, as I know that you do with your own content.
And so you know what you did? You rebranded. You deleted every single video that you made about me on your page and on your Instagram. And then just a few weeks later, now you're an equine activist.
Okay, so we both know that those videos aren't deleted because you downloaded them to use in this video that you made about me. We both know that they're still up. I don't delete my videos. That's actually something I have with pride, even though there's a lot of horsemanship and things that I've said and belief systems that I've espoused in previous content that I no longer believe in. But I think it's an important context to show how people's opinions and belief systems can evolve over time as they learn more. Also, reducing my advocacy and my perspectives on horsemanship to changing in a matter of a few weeks, not true. It was a long journey. It involved a lot of self-reflection, unpacking, and learning. Like, I did years of university to learn a lot of the stuff about horse behavior. I had to study to get my certificate to become an equine behavior consultant. It was work that happened slowly over the course of months and years because my perspective didn't shift immediately. It was something that has slowly evolved over time and continues to evolve. Trying to claim that this happened in a matter of a few weeks just is not true. I advocated for horses in the ways that I believed in back in the day, much of which were heavily influenced by traditional horse training and were not rooted in science. And I believed then that I was doing the right thing for horses. As I learned more and as I became less attached to the way that I handled horses and having that be such a key part of my identity, the way that I worked with horses shifted. My belief system shifted. I was in university and I had access to more studies on horses, so my perspective shifted as I learned more and realized that a lot of the things that I used to believe were not true. Trying to claim that I rebanded within a matter of 3 weeks or a few weeks just is not true. There's so many videos showing that that's not the case. I've had my channel for almost, I think, over a decade now. And you can go back and you can look for yourself and you can see how the content has evolved because all of those videos are still up.
Now you're speaking out about horse welfare? Give me a break. I knew you were always jealous of me for having a larger following, and you just wanted to tear me down at any chance you could get. And when you saw that that wasn't working for you, then that's when you changed. You grifted.
It's honestly wild seeing how narcissistic these viewpoints you're having about me are, where you think that the only motivation behind any of the learning that I've done in my life and the changes that I've made all have to be surrounding social media and what benefits me on social media and watching you as a figurehead for that. It doesn't acknowledge the fact that I took myself to school, I went to therapy, I got diagnosed with ADHD, I dealt with all the trauma I was dealing with my family, I wrote a book, and that was a super cathartic experience to go through all of the stuff that had happened to me and talk about how I used to train horses and how I used to treat them and process all of that and honestly share it with people so that it wasn't just like a secret that I felt like I was sitting on and just talk to people the process of that change. No, all of the personal growth that I've had in my life apparently has solely been for the benefit of pursuing this jealousy of Raleigh Link and trying to take her following. Every motivation in my life surrounds you. Is that really what you're saying? Because girl, life is so much bigger than social media. Why are you trying to reduce all of the learning and growth that I have done as a human being to solely being motivated by jealously trying to be like you? Why? It's just really, really icky and odd for you to do that. especially when we've had conversations at length about why these changes came about, and you never even led on to the fact that you felt any of the stuff you're saying now, when we have reconnected after these past years of having major disagreements.
I said, you know what? I believe that people can change, Shelby. You know, I always knew that the day would come when I would finally get to expose you for the grifter that you are. You pivoted to become part of the very movement that you mocked me relentlessly for.
You are so close to grasping the concept of growth and character development. So once again, I'm going to ask you, what is the purpose of your activism if you view it as inauthentic when people change their perspectives as they learn more and join movements that they previously might not have agreed with? What is the purpose of all of your activist posts if you don't see that as a good thing? If you see that as someone being a liar or a grifter if they change their perspectives? What's the purpose of doing all of the videos that you've done if it's not to change minds?
Remember you. I always knew deep down that you were full of it, of leaving. And I'm not the only one who makes videos like this. You know, Rick Gore makes videos like this. Shelby Dennis makes videos like this. Plenty of other people also call out bad equestrians. So it's not like when I leave, nobody's going to be doing it. Next video. Bye.
Now, I moved to Washington State in 2022, just a few hours away from her. And at this time, Shelby was claiming to be an equine activist. But never once, in the years that I lived in Washington State, did you ever reach out to me? Did you ever want to collaborate? But for those of you who remember, at the end of 2023, I was planning on quitting YouTube. As you know, events transpired, and I decided to stay. Just 8 days into the new year of 2024, when Shelby had thought that I had officially quit YouTube and wasn't coming back, she emailed me, wanting to collaborate. Gee, I wonder why. I wonder why you want to collaborate, Shelby. Oh, I've been meaning to reach out to you, girl. I've been meaning to. Yeah, but you never did, Shelby. In the year that I lived there, you never did. You waited until you thought that I left so you could grift.
You know how I read this email? Raleigh, I never liked you, and I bullied you relentlessly. But please, now that you've left YouTube, please, let's hang out.
Is that really how you read that email, though? Because we had talked an entire length of email threads prior to that, and nothing else had changed. We hadn't had any falling outs in the meantime. So I don't believe that that's how you read it. But also, if you want to know why the timeline of me reaching out was such, it was because in 2022 and 2023, I was in a terrible relationship that was very emotionally abusive, and I was really depressed. I hated myself. I was having a hard time getting up to do the things that I liked. I was having a hard time taking care of myself for personal hygiene and just doing what I had to do because I was miserable. I couldn't add anything more to my plate. I had too much going on, and I was also, if you'll go look at my pages, throughout 2023, I was advocating for the welfare organization that I co-founded, the Alliance for Horse Welfare and Sport. And then in late 2023, I was flying to France to go speak at a conference with FEI representatives to try to lobby for welfare change for horses in FEI sports. So I was busy all of 2023 with my own personal traumas, in addition to trying to push this organization and really make shifts. There was a petition that we were pushing, and we had a lot of goals that we were trying to meet, and that was all consuming. So then 2024 rolls around. I've had the winter to start recovering. I started hiking a lot. I started going to more therapy, and I was actually starting to feel more like myself. So then I reached out to you. January 8th, fun fact, that's my birthday. The reason why I reached out to you on my birthday is because I was talking to some horse friends about horse influencers and advocacy and people that we could connect with to help continue pushing the Alliance for Horse Welfare and Sport and try to elevate what we were doing for advocacy. So that's why I reached out to you then. You never replied. If you had replied, I could have clarified further and given you more details on the campaigns that we were running and what I had in mind for filming if you did want to collab, but you didn't. So you didn't reply. Now you're making assumptions and you're adding context to our relationship that was never there, and completely ignoring the fact that we've had a number of normal, friendly interactions over the recent years and that you've said nice things about me on your own channel. So I'm very confident that the only shift in how you view me is the result of the video that I posted.
So I can take your followers?
Money, please.
I think the funniest part about all of this is if you go look at my analytics and like how much my following has increased over the last couple of years, it has absolutely exploded. Like my Facebook following has doubled in a year and a half or less. My YouTube following, I haven't been posting as much on because YouTube's not as important to me, but Instagram has blown up. I don't need to reach out to Raleigh for followers because I'm already doing really well with that. I got a book deal last year. I have a book getting published in the spring. I don't need to piggyback off of someone for clout or for followers and content because I've already been doing a good job of curating my own content. So this self-obsessed narrative that Raleigh is trying to push, that I somehow need her to elevate my content and help me out, is just incredibly narcissistic.
Finally, one of the only other points that she makes about me in her video, calling me a performative activist, is in saying how I only spoke out about this one thing, classic whataboutism that I went over in my last video. Isn't this you?
So if you'd actually clicked on and opened the video about imperfect advocacy, it was talking about people doing an effort to engage in activism with certain topics pertaining to marginalized people, or in horse welfare was the large extent of that. And that it's not about being perfect in the way you word everything to the point where you have to pull it off perfectly. It's just about participating. But you haven't been participating in advocacy for marginalized people, which was what my whole video was about. So I don't think you watched that video, because if you had, you would see that the point that I was making is that people should be trying to get engaged in advocacy where they can. And you have shown that you have the capacity to advocate for marginalized groups of people, or at least give more nuance to the Charlie Kirk situation, and you haven't. So it's not about the advocacy being imperfect. It's about your advocacy for those people being non-existent and you platforming someone who perpetuates harm on marginalized people.